following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and hey, look, it's Madison.
Wait, I thought she died.
Jeez, I guess not. Anyway, following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and oh, look, that's Luciana, isn't it?
I thought she was dead too.
I guess not. Anyway, where was I? Oh, the following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and oh my God, is that Charlie?
Okay, I know she's dead, right?
Man, I'm so confused.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm confused.
And this is podcast episode number 305. This week, we're trying to, do our best to find something good to talk about episode 9 of season 8 of Fear the Walking Dead. The title of this episode is Iron Tiger. Is that like the most 80s title that they could possibly come up with?
I think so.
I think so too.
I was a little disappointed that they didn't get the rights to the Eye of the Tiger song, from the 80s and have that playing when her truck pulled up, blaring out of the sound system.
Iron
that would have been cool.
Tiger.
Exactly. Survivor, they'll take the money.
Yeah, they're not hurting, but everybody's got to pay their rent, man.
That's right.
Anyway. All right. So, before we get into details of the episode, let's just quick thoughts. I went first last week. Age before beauty. So Steve, your turn. What were your thoughts on Iron Tiger?
Iron Tiger. Yeah. Okay. So, this episode was not good. I know that I've said this in the past, but I'm going to say it again, in that this episode, I think, has a chance to be the worst episode of the entire series. And I think we're never really going to know for sure which episode is the absolute suckiest, because there have been so many in the last 4 seasons that have got quite a bit of suckage in them that it's hard. They kind of all blur together for me. So I'm just going to nominate this one and saying that if it's not the absolute worst, it's real close. And I know for a fact that if we were not doing the podcast and covering the end of the show, I would not be watching anymore. That this would be I'm out. I don't care. I don't care about any of these people. The story is really stupid and uninteresting. And it's very obvious that the showrunners do not understand how to do a zombie show. And, we're just back to doing the same things we've been doing all 4 seasons, and we'll get into it. But it's just, I'm done. I mean, there's, for a long time, I like to watch the show because I like to stare into the dreamy eyes of my future Australian ex-wife. And then they took her from me. And now there is just nobody left at all that I'm at all. I mean, I'm rooting for the zombies to eat everybody at this point, So I'm done. I mean, this episode, there was a moment or two that I kind of liked that we'll get into, but it was terrible. In every sense of the word, it was terrible. Yeah. So what'd you think?
We talked right before we started, and I clarified my earlier texts about the episode by saying that, unlike last week's episode, I felt like last week I really couldn't find anything good about the episode. Like, there was nothing positive. And I think, we talk about this all the time. Like, I think we try our best to say, you know what, when something is good, we want to talk about it. Like, when they, even in the midst, even if it's 1% of this show, if there was 1%, one moment one look, one zombie, you name it. We'll do our best. And I couldn't find anything last week, but there were actually a couple of things on my list that I was like, okay. Whether it was a quote or a thing or a scene or a production value, and like you said, when we get to details, we'll get into that. But I agree. Other than that, this is more ridiculous story with ridiculous situations, ridiculous acting. We're getting to the point where the writing is so bad that just acting the lines, these actors that I love and respect sound and look terrible. And they, like, I think previous to this season, they have all, acted the shit out of, like, whatever they've been given. Like, your words are terrible, but at least, like, I can see on your face you've got emotion and you're connected with the stuff, even though it's ridiculous. But it's really starting to feel like they're not. Like, I honestly, I do not blame them. I don't blame them at all for phoning it in. But this was the first episode where I really felt like there were scenes where they would have emotional scenes, and this is the way it would be delivered. And you're like, what are we watching? Is this like a kids show on the CW? I mean, no, yeah. It defies imagination that it would be this poorly done. And the things that we were able to at least point to in the past, whether it be production values, this episode didn't really have a lot of things that looked great. I mean, it was pretty average, so we couldn't even be like, oh, this scene looked great. And the actors are really starting to phone it in, because they're they're in their senior year and they're almost done. So, and I don't blame them, but it's making it even more difficult to get into the episode at all, and find any even little nuggets. So yeah, I like what you said about this maybe being the worst episode of the whole series, but we'll never really know. And I think a lot of that too is when the series is done, no one's ever going to watch these episodes again.
No.
No one's ever going to go, I'm really dying to watch season 7, episode 2. Like, it's not going to happen. Anything after the auto farm is probably never going to be watched again.
The dam explosion. I mean, that was kind of it. That's the end of the show, and
right.
And maybe that's what they're going to do. Maybe the last episode, they're going to pull a Dallas on us, and Madison will suddenly wake up at the very end, and she'll be like on the shore, and she'll be like, oh, it was a terrible dream. And then Alicia will show up, and Nick. Right, they'll get Frank Delane from Europe or wherever the hell he is, doing real stuff, and they'll have him come back for a day, and they'll be there, and that'll be the end of the show or something. I mean,
that'd be amazing if they could do that. I would think that would be hilarious. But the probability of these guys being able to write themselves out of a paper bag, is what I mean. It's not going to happen.
No,
but yeah, I agree. Terrible episode. I actually shut off the Bears game where they were losing terribly and went from that to this. And when my wife was like, she's like, ugh, this is awful, I'm going to bed. I'm like, ugh, this is awful, I'm going to put on a terrible television show. She's like, why? I'm like, I have to.
It made you feel better about the Bears, though.
Yeah, I mean, really, they're bad, but this is like the worst. Oh, God, just all around terrible. So, yeah. All right. Well, now that we both talked about how much we hated the episode, that's all for this week, folks. We'll talk to you next week. No, I'm kidding. If only. But we're going to get into our individual points on the episode and talk through some of those a little bit. Before that, we're going to remind you of what this episode was all about, with a little bit of episode description, and that's your department, Steve. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right. Well, this week's episode is being brought to you by Iron Tiger Trucking.
Are you looking to haul some goods in this zombie-infested world, but don't know who to call? Well, why not try Iron Tiger Trucking? once left for dead due to radiation poisoning, the Iron Tiger was saved using science and cured somehow. Iron Tiger Trucking. Now she cruises the highways and byways of the southern, western, northeastern, mid-Atlantic Gulf region. Iron Tiger Trucking. Wherever she is out there and ready to deliver your goods. Services include gasoline delivery, exploding gasoline delivery. Iron Tiger Trucking. So what are you waiting for? Contact a polar bear today and have your cargo hauled tomorrow. Iron Tiger Trucking.
Warning, Iron Tiger Trucking does not know the location of Padre. But let's be honest, it's an island, and if you can't find it, you must be an idiot.
All right, so I'm going to hire her.
I mean, you might as well. I mean, she covers such a wide swath of,
Hey,
we're assuming we're in the Georgia coast or somewhere, and all the way over to Arizona.
It doesn't matter where it is; she's there. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, it's mythical. She's a mythical creature.
she is, and again, she does so many things because she delivers gasoline and exploding gasoline.
Oh my God, amazing!
So,
that kid.
That kid, I tell you, for someone that never existed in the pre-world where she took driver's ed. She can handle a big rig because that's just the way this show rolls.
My God. Zombie apocalypse, CDL optional.
CDL optional. That's right. Although I would imagine that Lucy'd be like, I don't know. You don't have a CDL.
I know she is a stickler.
Yes. Yeah. Anywho, so moving on to the episode itself, unfortunately.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I know we do. I'd love to just talk about Iron Tiger Trucking all day, but, unfortunately, business must interfere here. The episode, again, is 8.8, and the title of the episode is 2 Down and 4 Left. And then they, the show also added Iron Tiger in there, but we know what the title was, people. And the description that we have is... The search for gas leads to an unexpected reunion that Madison uses as an opportunity. And that is your episode description.
As an opportunity to, I guess she's not really, she didn't really murder Charlie, but definitely you could call this manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter, for sure.
She showed her where the murder was going to take place, but then that was really it.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, my God. Awful. All right. So one more thing before we get into our points. Let's just talk the writers and director that we can blame for this steaming pile of doo-doo.
This controversy?
This controversy, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, our writers are people that we've talked about in the past. They are members of the Knucklehead writing team. Again, this insulated group that somehow, I'm guessing it's got to be some type of a cult in the fact that they all believe that this is really good writing, and that the Knuckleheads can do no wrong. But the two people are Nick Bernadone, and the other guy is Jacob Pinion, and we've talked about them a bunch before. Nick Bernadone has written 7 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. He wrote 1 in season 5. He wrote 3 in season 6 and 3 in season 7, and then he actually is writing 3 episodes in season 8. So he'll actually have 10 writing credits on this flaming turd of a show.
10.
Yes. And so this in season 8, he wrote this episode, Iron Tiger, with Jacob Pinion. Next week's episode, the highly anticipated Dwight and Sherry episode entitled Sanctuary, 8.9. That's also with Jacob Pinion. And then he and Jacob Pinion and another person named Kelly Jane Costello wrote 8.12, the series finale, and that is entitled The Road Ahead. And the other guy that he wrote with, Jacob Pinion, he wrote a whole bunch of stuff. He wrote all 6 episodes of the Althea tapes, those little shorts about Al's interviews. And he wrote all 6 episodes of Dead in the Water, which was the submarine story that explained how Teddy's right-hand man and the missile submarine got to where it was, and so on. Then he wrote 4 episodes of Fear, 2 in season 6 and 2 in season 7. And then, again, he wrote these 3 episodes in season 8 with Nick Bernadotte in season 8.8, which is this one, 8.9, which is Sanctuary, and 8.12, which is The Road Ahead with Nick and Kelly Jane Costello. So that's our writing team, if you want to call them that. And our director is a gal, and her name, I'm not making it up, is S.J. Main Munoz. And Main is like M-A-I-N, like she's the main Munoz. I don't know. This is her only Walking Dead credit, but she has done a lot of other television. She's done shows like Chicago PD, Chicago Med, The Rookie, 9/11 Lone Star, American Horror Stories, and The Cleaning Lady, amongst a whole list of credits. So she's actually done quite a bit of television work before, and I guess she wanted to have this on her resume. I don't know why. That is your writers and your director.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk cold open. You and I both made note of one really cool thing that they started off with, and really like cool visual, and then everything really kind of went downhill from there. But how awesome was that ghoul right in the beginning? Oh yeah. I love your description. Starfish Barnacle Ghoul. It's like I think I have their album. Yeah. Yeah, they had a couple of independent hits in the 90s. Yeah, you know what I mean? They're like niche. An Alice in Chains knockoff band or something. But I can just hear them. So yeah. But no, he did. It looked great, and it was a real interesting idea. And the technical people on the show are still at the top of their game. Yeah. And that showed, and that was great. And I was just like you were. I'm like, wow, that was really neat. Yeah. And then it just immediately went off the cliff. Yeah. In terms of enjoyment. So yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Where was you wrote down the sign that says Low Country Landing? Was that the gas station? Yeah, that's the sign that's outside of the gas station. And interesting. You know, they pull up in like a boat, and they have some kid with some guy that we've never seen before, who's like must be from Padre, and he's explaining that this is where Padre would pick up these tanker full of gas. And so they're trying to find out who was giving the gas to Padre, because they need to stock up on gas for this upcoming, final battle with Troy, because their supplies are low. And so, that's why they're there. And then of course a whole bunch of ghouls show up, and so they decide, well, let's go into this building here and avoid them. And when they go inside, that's when things get, dumb. So, well, what's interesting is I didn't notice the name of I was very little that I was like, write this down. But we were talking about we have no idea where they are, and it feels like they might be in Georgia-ish, but maybe on the Gulf side. And because the Padre stuff feels like, is that Louisiana, Mississippi? Like it feels very swampy and whatever. So it's been very kind of nebulous, like hard to pin down like where exactly we are. Yeah. But then we were talking about like the whole the military aspect, and they were close by. So could that be Virginia or what? Who the hell knows? But if that place is called the Low Country, there is only one area in the country that is considered the Low Country, and it's the southern tip of South Carolina, right where it touches Georgia. So could that be? And if you look at it too, it's got a lot of like islands and and there is like Fort Sumter is right near there. I'm not saying that's where they are, like where Padre is or any of that stuff, but there's all of these different islands, and you could easily have like that kind of that swampy sort of like in the reeds and the waterfront areas, like very very like the way their waterfront is showing that the location that they are, how it's like sort of little like tributaries that are leading out to the sea and all that other stuff. Like it seems very like it's not like a straight coastline. There's all sorts of like waterways and areas going kind of in and out, and if you look at that area on a map, like that low country in South Carolina, I mean, it kind of looks like that. So again, I'm not saying that's where they are. I'm saying they haven't said where they are, but that's a pretty specific thing to say when they could have said anything. And that really, really puts them in a very specific spot that we haven't even talked about yet. Like we've been talking about like Louisiana and the Gulf Coast and Georgia because of the proximity to, all of the, like Morgan feels like he walked a day and was able to get to where Eastman was and all that. And now Southern South Carolina, I'm like, dude, like, where the hell are these people? That makes it even worse almost if you pin it to that area.
If we're saying that it's on the Atlantic coast there, so then that means you have to say that everybody got in their little lifeboats off the shore of Texas,
and they went around
in
Florida.
the Gulf of and they somehow drifted all the way through the Gulf, around Florida, and up the Atlantic coast before they were found by Padre. I don't think so.
I don't either.
If I cared at all, I would put more thought into it, but I don't. So it is what it is. This is the magical version of the United States, that everything is very close by yet super far away. Because Dwight and Sherry have somehow gotten to the sanctuary. Like you said, Morgan got all the way to the cheesemaker's house, and then went all the way back to where his wife was and his kid was, which is all the way back to in Georgia, and then got back to the swampy area in like a night. And it's just they're just all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason to any of their locations at all. And if you think about it, in this episode, this place, the Low Country Landing, is close enough to Anton's house of Schnitzel that you can get there real quick, because Troy picked up Charlie and got back there, and then they all drove there and were there to take them on. And so they got to be close there, and Padre has to be close to the landing because they were picking up the gas and taking it back.
Yeah.
So so all these places are super close by, yet no, we don't know where Padre is. Really? We can't find it? I don't know. Again, it doesn't make any sense. It's just their version of storytelling. It does. Yeah. And so whatever.
Yeah. It bothers me to pick something so specific when and I only looked it up because I was like, when I saw that you included it, and I'm like, oh, Low Country, and I was like, and I knew that had a Southern connection, but I didn't know. Like, I know I've heard it mentioned, whether in a book or a movie or a TV show or something, and I knew it had a Southern connection, but I was like, is it like Mississippi, Alabama? I don't know. And I was not expecting South Carolina. And it's the first time that we've had any kind of connection that tied the show possibly to South Carolina, which, like you said, if you start digging into the details, doesn't make any sense based on all the other stuff we've seen. So it kind of bothers me more than anything.
I will, in my defense, the sign, it's very hard to read. It's dirty, and they don't really give you a super close up on it. And it's possible it said Low County Landing. But again, I got out of it Low Country, but again, that could mean anything. You know what I mean? And they could have just made that up too. It might not be tying to a specific real place. It's just
sure.
No, so yeah, I don't know how much stock to put in it.
Oh yeah,
as far as pinning it down.
And these guys, the choices they make, they could conceivably, this whole thing could be taking place on the Mississippi coast, Alabama coast, and they just picked that because they're like, oh, it's very southern, low country, they could have as much connection with that phrase as I did. And been like, oh, it sounds very southern. This will help tie them to the southern, very deep South area.
Right.
And they used it without realizing that it connects to a very specific area as opposed to a general area. So it's it could just, like you said, it could just as easily be them being dodos and not knowing what they're doing and just picking a name that sounded interesting.
Right.
Yep. Anyway. We're spending way too much time on this.
We are.
I did like the moment where they came into the gas station and they see all of the supplies and then they see the sign and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And then when Madison wasn't a part of that, so she doesn't know. And when Victor's like, relics of a bygone era. And I'm like, he's aware of what that was and how it was it didn't really work when they did it.
It just that really pissed me off. And the reason for it is that, if you look at this show since these guys took over, this has been the constant of the whole show. And I would, again, something happened to these two guys when they were children. I don't know. They were abused. They were kidnapped. Something happened because they just have it in their heads that clearly in the apocalypse, the number one goal is to be this sort of, selfless, sacrificial, give everything to everyone else all the time mode, which is so unbelievable that anyone would have the resources or the desire to do what now multiple people have done on their show, and that is set up these places that have electricity, that have power, they're fully stocked, and it's just sort of this kind of utopia. Yeah, just come in and take what you I'm sorry, no. The best I think you could ever hope for is what Victor was doing last week, which is they had a very safe place. It was set up. It was self-sustaining. They had a good community going. And if people showed up outside the gates, if they needed help, they took them in, they fed them, they helped them out. And then if they wanted to stay, they had probably had some kind of vetting process to see, are you a good person or are you not? And if they are, they could stay. And if they wanted to leave or they didn't want to stay, they could go. And that would be it. But I mean, this just insistence on, no, we're going to set up these remote places all over it is so unbelievable and so stupid that you would waste those resources in this kind of a situation. I mean, let's be honest, people don't do that now. Okay.
Right.
Why? What makes you think people are going to do that in that universe? Because, that's a good idea, because everything is dwindling in terms of resources, food, everything. So yeah, let's set all this stuff up. No. So I hated that moment. I hate that store. I hate those stupid boxes. It's just bad. Bad.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just this, it's like this weird fantasy, this pie in the sky, the best of humanity. And that's everything we've ever seen about the apocalypse. Are there people who try to do nice things? Yes. Mm-hmm. But this level of selflessness is something you've never seen because there are more bad people than there are good people. And a lot of it has to do with survival of the fittest. And none of that's going to happen. And here's the thing. There's no way that you would set those up and someone wouldn't come along and take the whole thing.
Exactly. That's the thing. And trash it or whatever. And then what? Are you going to set it up again?
Yeah.
The The only thing I was disappointed in, I gotta say, is that I figured since they went that far, I was hoping somewhere in that store was a stupid VCR running that dumb, videotape that they made about how great they are. I mean, that was like, where's that? Why aren't you doing that too, Lucy? Come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's bad.
It'd be different if it were, and this is the thing, like it's so big that to me, it's inconceivable. To me, what would be more realistic is like the kind of stuff you see these days, like, those tiny libraries that people put in front of their houses.
Mm-hmm.
If you set those up like every 50 to 100 miles, and you just put like, here are some potatoes that are left over from our crop.
Yeah.
Or here's a couple of ears of corn and some apples, here's some bandages that we made that you can use. Like, we can make more, but it's like, it'd be something very minimal, very small, almost like, you've seen the Hunger Games movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's almost like, they've got those bags that they grab from the cornucopia at the beginning, and it's weapons, but it's also, there's little things that you can use. She ended up with, rope, which helped her later, but it's little things like when they would have stuff sent in by sponsors or whatever.
Right.
It's exactly what you needed,
When Peter got the makeup so he could look like a rock.
Yeah, exactly. But like, to me, I look at that and I'm like, she's not going to share that with anyone else, and that's an extreme survival of the fittest moment, but she's not going to take that like burn cream and be like, oh, I'm done, I'm going to leave it here for somebody else to use. No, that's not the way that would work. Not at all.
Yeah, I know. It's and yet that, I mean, their whole show, ever since Morgan showed up, all it's been is, we just got to help everybody we find. Everybody we got. Oh my God, that's our whole. And again, it's a lofty kind, like you said, pie in the sky sentiment. It's just, I'm sorry, the realities of surviving in that universe would make that impossible.
I just feel like there are so many much more realistic ways that they could try and help people. This has just always been such an unrealistic way to do it. And like you said, it's the resources thing. It's why would you waste them on people? I mean, and now, like, when they were doing it, they were like, what, 4 or 5 years in, maybe a few years in. We're now at like 12 years in. Yeah. So there are no more canned goods. Not really.
Well, none that you can eat and not die.
Well, here's the thing. I did appreciate one thing, which is when there's something that makes no sense, like how would that even happen? And you're like, well, maybe this is where she got those things from, but she never explained it. I do appreciate that Lucy, at least they explained that the supplies that she used from there were all from the containers that Padre, they had at Padre, which were all years and years. And you and I both know that if they were military, they were probably not canned, but they were probably like those little plastic bags. They're MREs.
Yeah.
So that
but those are only good for like 6 or 7 years. They're not.
It's not infinite. It's not infinite for sure. For sure. But I still appreciate, regardless of the usability of them, I at least appreciate, because when I saw it, I was like, that's a pretty well-stocked shelf.
Oh, my God.
I mean, yes, it's empty if you compare it to our shelves, but it's pretty full if you compare it to shelves you see during those times. And her quick response of like, this is how we got all those things and da-da-da-da, and we've been, using the stuff from the containers. I was like, oh, I actually appreciate it. I was like, an explanation that makes sense on why you have so many items. The rest of it doesn't make sense, but the where you got them makes sense, so that anyway. So Lucy's back, and
Madison sees a ghoul with an arm missing.
Yes.
And this is kind of a theme in this episode because there are lots of
Yes.
ghouls with arms missing. But she makes the very, very sensible thing to start tapping on the glass door to try and draw the ghoul over so she can look at it and see if it's Alicia. And all the ghouls come over and they smash through the glass. And, it doesn't look super good for our heroes, but then all the ghouls get gunned down, and we've come to find that Lucy is still alive, and this is her place. And so we get the reunion of Lucy and Daniel, and more importantly, the reunion of Lucy and Madison. I think the Madison Lucy reunion was kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, it was. I did notice that, like, you and I both wrote the same line down when Lucy says, "Madison, you died a long time ago." Madison says, "I've been getting that a lot lately."
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny. In a better show, it probably would have felt funnier. But these guys are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very much expecting there to be a little more emotion and some more, like, hugging, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and they did in the end. But I'm very. It'd be different if, like, Denai Garcia, if she played it like almost like she saw a ghost, like if she stepped back, like she was scared or she couldn't believe what she was seeing. But she played it very even, like, oh my God, Madison. And, like, literally this is a woman you thought was dead and you haven't physically seen in, like, it's been 7 years with the whole Padre thing, but it's been more than that since before that. Like, so it's got to be like 9 years or so.
9 or 10 years.
9 or 10 years.
This person, yeah.
Yeah. And she's the mother of the guy that you were practically married to.
She's your mother-in-law, like your apocalypse mother-in-law. Yeah. And see, this is another problem with the show. And for a while, this was more of a thing that happened at season finales and mid-season, like the pickup of the second half of the season, is that these guys would just rewrite characters that they would just change everything about them. And so everything that we thought we knew, like, well, this character, likes this, doesn't like this, those are all off the table. I mean, and now it's gotten to the point where it's almost every episode because I mean, last week in Anton, Madison couldn't wait to wreck Victor's little place and went out of her way to wreck Victor's place. And now this episode, and I don't know how much time has passed between the two because they never tell us, but they're now besties again. And he's comforting her and hugging her and telling her everything's going to be okay about Nick and it's going to be great and all this. And I'm like, wait a minute, Madison, you were ready to throw him under the bus last week. And Strand is all over the place, right? So Lucy is too. So this character, I mean, it's the same actor and the character has the same name, but that's not Lucy.
Yeah,
that's not the Lucy we met initially and saw for a couple of seasons. This is just they're writing lines and making Danae say them, which is great because she finally gets to do something on this show because she hasn't really been in it for a long time. But I was watching this and first of all I was like you said I was amazed at how bad Kim Dickens is in this episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's one moment, the freak out scene where she's smashing everything with a hammer. I like that moment, but the rest of her performance I thought was just bad.
Yeah.
And I thought Ruben Blades' performance was bad.
Yes.
And Strand is still kind of good even when he's saying ridiculous stuff. But I thought Lucy was bad too. And part of it is she has this. I'm guessing what they told her was. You have to give up all of the people you love to keep them safe, and that's your attitude. So you don't let anyone get close now to you. But again, I just that is really stupid. That to me, that she's like, Daniel, I had to give you up to save you. It's like, okay, so you saved him, then why didn't you look for him out? Because he wasn't on Padre where they were keeping an eye on. I don't know. None of it made sense. You're right, though. I mean, their reaction was their reunion was not at all what you would expect, right?
Right.
You know, that this is Nick's soulmate. This is the person that knew Nick, you know, probably as much as Madison did.
Yeah.
Right. And their reaction to each other was sort of like, hey.
Yeah. And I think too, like, one of the ways that emotions feel more genuine is when you see people, like, when you see more of an emotional journey. And wouldn't it have been more poignant if she had some type of emotional reaction, you know, even if she, you know, trying to be tough in front of her guys, but maybe she hugs Madison and has like a little tear, but wipes it away. But you can see she's emotional, at least a little bit. Wouldn't it have then made more of a sense if the next part of her journey emotionally was, oh shit, Charlie's coming. Charlie and Madison doesn't know, and oh my God, and we have to keep this from her, and she can't know that Charlie's here, and you know what I mean? And she's thinking selfishly there, but she's also like, Charlie is important to her. Charlie has been with her for all these years, and she is an integral part of what Lucy has done. And so there was also not a lot of emotion around that either, you know? I think if they had given her a little bit more to work with, that, you know, she could have showed this was an emotional episode for Lucy because of these two different women who were important to her in different ways. And, you know, and there's some tragedy involved, but it's like, I feel really bad. And like you said, though, like, she was given some poor words, but I don't think Danae did a really great job with them either. You know, they just, she didn't do great this episode. And I agreed with yours as well. Like Kim Dickens and Ruben Blades. Yeah, they started.
You know, like you said, I mean, these are veteran pro actors that have been doing this for a long time. And I think they checked out, you know, where, you know, they're like, oh my God, these scripts are terrible. Let's just get through this.
Yeah.
You know, because, hey, we're getting a paycheck and let's just get through this, you know, and it's not like they're still filming now. Right. I mean, these were all filmed, you know, months and months and months ago. So, I mean, it's, you know, they just, I don't know. Kim Dickens, as some of the lines Kim Dickens gives in this episode, I mean, you could almost think she was doing it as a comedy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's supposed to be deadly serious, right? I mean, the way these guys are approaching this, I mean, this is like, you know, oh my God, you know, she's sending Charlie to her death and all that. I mean, it's laughably bad in parts, but you're right. You know, I think Danae, I always felt when she was emotional, she was better as an actor when she can, you know, she's kind of wearing her heart on her sleeve kind of thing. And the fact that they've now made her this cold, calculating, I don't let anyone get in past the defenses, you know, thing, that's just not what she's naturally good at. And so, you know, it comes across that way where you're like, did you still need to look at the script, Danae? I mean, so, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, which is, it's just a shame because it's like, this shouldn't be the ending of a character that, I mean, she's been around since so much she was season 2, right?
Season 2, yeah. I believe after Madison, Strand, and Daniel, she's the longest running character. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a shame because, you know, I think they struggled after, you know, Frank Delane left the show to try and find her center. And I think it was really difficult for them to write out of that and give her some purpose. And I still don't think they've ever really found it.
No,
you know,
no, they didn't.
Which is a shame. All right. So That being said, speaking of Lucy was the title card.
Right.
Which I don't know. There was a lot that centered near Lucy, but it didn't really center on her.
No.
Like, she was the catalyst and the reason for a lot of things in this episode. The reason of, you know, the gas and Charlie and the stuff and all of this, but it really wasn't Lucy specific. I don't know. It felt
I
weird
agree.
that she was the choice.
I think it's something that you said before we started. I think you were spot on in that it should have been Charlie as the title card, but they wanted to keep that as a surprise because Charlie hadn't been revealed before the title card happened.
Yeah.
It's after, the title card that Charlie rolls up in her truck, when Iron Tiger Trucking shows up. So, like you said, that they wanted that to be the shock, right? They wanted, oh my God, who's in the truck? And Madison, who's in the truck? With her wonderful delivery. And then the door opens and she, climbs out, of course, back, with her back to everyone. And then she turns around and it's like, oh my God, it's Charlie, and so if she's in the title card, we're like, oh yeah, well, we knew she was in it somewhere because, there she is. Yeah. And I think too, the actor, what's her name? Alexa Neeson, I think. She is not in the opening credits. She's at the end credits.
She's what? I'm sorry.
She's not in the opening credits. I know she's in the room, isn't she?
No, she's not.
Okay.
Alexa was in the room.
I get you. Her name is not in the opening credits. It's in the end credits.
Ah, interesting.
So they
were able to keep it at least a little bit secret.
Yeah, they did. But you're right. I agree. I mean, it's obviously Lucy. You can actually see her facial features. It's not like a shadow like some of them are. I mean, they go out of their way to say, yeah, it's Lucy. And I agree, because Lucy is not a central character in this story at all. Yeah,
it's interesting. I was curious about one thing too, which is when they made such a big deal about the reveal of Charlie. Who did you think it was when she started like backing down? Because you couldn't see the face. All you had was the long hair.
I actually went, if that's Charlie, I'm seriously thinking about turning off the show. That was my first thought. And sure enough, there she is. And then my second thought was, how? How is this possible? Yep. And the answer is laughable when Charlie has some splaining to do and, explain how she didn't kick off. And so on. So yeah, that I never thought it was Alicia. I never thought it was as soon as she backed out and I saw the long black hair, I'm like, if that's forking Charlie, I'm done. And sure enough, it was. What about you? Who'd you think?
I actually didn't even think of Charlie, strangely. I was like, who is that? I said, if it was, and in my head, I was like, if it wasn't for the long hair, the only other person we've ever seen drive a big vehicle was, well, Mo Collins. That's true. I didn't even think of her. I was thinking maybe Al.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know why, but I don't know why. There's just something about like Charlie's shape. She's a little bit smaller, a little more petite. And like, as she was backing down, I was like, who? And also the thought I had really like a split second was, who would really throw us off by showing like long black hair? So like be the opposite of the way we last saw them. And I was like, oh, Al could be. Yeah. I also thought too, like for a half second, I was like, Al. And then I was like, maybe Sherry, because Sherry and Dwight sort of did the split. And I knew that there's a Sherry and Dwight episode coming. And I was like, well, maybe it would springboard from this to that. But then when she turned and it was Charlie, I was like, son of a bitch. Like, she was balding. She was losing her hair the last time I saw her. Well, she was almost dead.
She was. I mean, yeah, she was in like the final stages of, dying the last time we saw her. Although I will point out that in the first half of this terrible season, when they were on the train car, there were
Mm-hmm.
all of the pictures of the people that June was using the radiation therapy on.
Yep.
And if you remember, I mentioned in one of them that when we did that one, that I thought I saw Charlie as one of the patients.
Really. It's
Mhm.
and I was just going to say too, like, knowing that she meant at least something to a few of those people, why wouldn't June say anything to
Yeah.
them? That's the other thing, is there going to next be a confrontational moment with, like, say, Daniel and June, or, Strand or
Mhm.
Madison and June, and just be like, why didn't you tell us that, Charlie was okay? This whole time we've thought she was dead.
Right.
You
right.
know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know what Madison was thinking about her, but certainly Strand did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they all went off together in that same sort of caravan and then got kind of split up and whatever. But you would assume that Charlie was gone,
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I honestly didn't. And I think there was even some sort of press release that said that, that the actress who plays her, that she, doesn't appear in the list for any of the episodes coming up. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so she's gone.
So she's gone,
which we pretty much assumed the way we last saw her. But yeah, I just, oh God.
Well,
So
yeah, yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, so as bad as it was to, her explanation and, how she's still alive and all that stuff. Ooh, don't mind me. A little frog in my throat. And as much as that stuff was nuts, I agree with you. I really, really liked Madison's freak out. I thought that was actually really well done.
That was in probably the last 3 seasons, that was like the realest moment the show's had. I mean, the only thing that kind of came close to me was when June was, giving the stink eye to Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
after Dakota, killed John Dory. But this was, I mean, it felt real. It felt, I liked how she was, clearly blaming herself, because she's like, if I hadn't let this, girl into the stadium, maybe Nick would still be alive. Maybe Alicia would still be alive. It's all my fault. And I, as crazy and unbelievable as it was, I liked how Strand was trying to comfort her. Yeah. And was telling her, you didn't know how any of this was going to play out. None of us did. And when she's pissed at Strand and she's like, why didn't you tell me, that she killed Nick? And he's like, I thought she was dead and I didn't think it mattered. And I agree with him. Why? Yeah. Why tell her that? It's just going to hurt her. Absolutely. She's just going to so yeah, I agree. I liked that moment. I liked when she was, smashing the ghouls and taking out her anger. I mean, it felt like a really real moment. And it was just that. There was nothing else in this episode that felt at all remotely like it could be real. You know what I mean? In terms of the acting. So that was it. That was Kim Dickens' moment, and the rest of it is farce.
And I the thing that I also liked is, so Charlie's admission was that she was the one who killed Nick, but the fact that Madison actually tied all of it up, yes, the Alicia stuff too, but it's not just that she killed Nick, but her association with those people is the reason the stadium fell. And that was Madison's dream, was to have a place like that where her kids could be safe and she could keep an eye on them. And before Charlie came, they were doing that. Yeah. And they were succeeding. Their crops were starting to grow. It was working. And we talked about it at the time. We didn't know that the season was going to fall apart as it did. But in the beginning, like the stadium portions of the season, you really, like, we talked about it. We're like, a stadium is actually a smart place. There's a lot of places where you can create living space and gathering space, and it's completely surrounded, and it's just a big field in the middle. Like, it makes the most sense to be a community. And that's part of the reason I love world building, and I love seeing things from a previous world being used in like a post-apocalyptic sense in a way that makes sense. And the stadium was one of those places. So I really appreciated that they also tied all of it to the stadium fell because of Charlie, because of Charlie's, betrayal. Connection and her betrayal, really. Yeah.
I mean, she was a mole. I mean, they sent the vultures, Enos and the vultures sent her in there to do that, to bring it down. And, then she went even further, by shooting Nick in cold blood.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, and again, I like some of her excuses. She was 11.
Right,
I mean,
which is
what
true.
I mean? She literally was a kid. Her group had been totally wiped out, so she was completely on her own. You know what I mean? So again, doesn't excuse it. It doesn't make it right, but you can at least understand, what she was thinking and going through emotionally and so on and everything. But again, that moment, when she says, I killed Nick, I killed your son, and then the freak out that that Madison had, I thought was really great. So I really enjoyed that, and that was kind of the highlight. If the episode would have ended right there, I would have had a much higher opinion of everything.
I like two other parts of that freak out. One of them is during the freak out, they intercut with her like rage. She's like raging out with the hammer and smashing all the Zeds, but they intercut with it some scenes with showing Nick with Madison. So you actually saw Nick. And I was gonna say, overall, there was a lot of like old home week this episode, between using those images of Nick later with Charlie. She has some flashback images too, right before she, does her thing. And then there was also, Charlie talking about, the vultures and recounting that instance. Then later there's another, like, between talking to Troy and recounting what happened at the dam and what actually happened on the ranch and things like that. Like, there was a lot of like previous episode exposition that happened in this episode. Some of it was really good. Like, it was nice to see them, because you said that before, where sometimes this show forgets about the seasons that happened before it. But this, they spent a lot of time in this episode like harkening back and like pointing back to old things that happened, which I thought was very interesting. And one of those things, I did like the footage they used while she was raging out. And I also liked when she was sort of admonishing Strand, and she's like, how could you guys all let her be around? How could you forgive her? I find it hard to believe that any of you, including Alicia, and Strand said Alicia was the first one to forgive. And I thought that really, like, Madison, like, she sort of stopped and really took that in, So as much as this was a terrible episode, a lot of the stuff that they did around Charlie's admission and then Madison's reaction were actually pretty good. Anyway, in a better show, we might have been like, oh, was that a little over dramatic or whatever? But this is a terrible show, and it was a moment of actual emotional truth in the midst of absolute ridiculousness.
Well, you're right, and what I liked about it is that this is the first time since the hurricane episode that anyone has held Charlie's feet to the fire for killing him. And after the freak out scene, Charlie comes over and talks to her, and then this is when Madison says, I want you to, infiltrate Troy's camp and kill him. And then it goes to commercial, and when it comes back, Madison is talking to Charlie again, and I think it's it's before the ashes that stupid thing happened. It's Madison talking, and Lucy's right there, and I felt everything they were saying. It just was it lacked all of the emotional punch, because she's talking about you killed my son, you killed Nick, you took Nick away from me, and standing right next to Charlie is basically Nick's wife, Nick's soulmate, Nick's person that they had found each other and were together. And that poor woman never got a chance in this entire show to express how she really felt about Charlie doing that. And in fact, she's like, no, I love Charlie. Charlie's my friend. And I'm like, really, Lucy? I mean, we never really covered this. You never got a chance to, at least tell her that she can't watch TV 2 nights a week for what I mean, there's nothing. I mean, and I felt that it was just hollow when Madison is going all off on her. And yet there's Lucy just going like, yeah, I never really said anything about it. I just kind of went, oh, you come on back in, I'll give you a hug, So I as much as I appreciate them acknowledging the past, I thought that was kind of a funny acknowledgement of, and you guys avoided doing that too. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So she gets sent off to infiltrate the camp, and then, like you said, you're not surprised she gets captured.
Yeah, of course.
and I mean, my thing is, I wrote down was as she leaves, and then I think Madison finds Nick's ashes.
Yeah.
And
which was so stupid. That whole thing was dumb.
I know, it was bad. And so Lucy kind of explains about why they dug him up and cremated what was left of him and so on. And so Madison has a change of heart and wants to call Charlie back. And Charlie's like, yeah, I can't come back. And she's like, yeah, you can. And she's like, no, I can't, because they've caught me. And, all of Troy's men are out, encircling the truck. You would think, okay, at that moment, Madison would shut the fuck up on the radio, wouldn't you? Right?
Nope.
Right? No. And again, remember, her plan is Troy doesn't know who Charlie is, because Troy never met Charlie. So he doesn't know that she's affiliated with Madison. Okay. Yep. Yet Madison then continues to talk on an open radio channel to Charlie using her name, and Charlie is using Madison's name after she knows Troy's people have got her. And then we're surprised she gets caught. I mean, it's just, that was one of the dumbest moments that this show has done in there's a long line of dumb moments. This one almost goes all the way up to the head of the class there. I mean, I was just like, Madison, why are you talking on the radio? Why isn't Lucy talking to her on the radio?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just so bad. It's so bad. And so they take her hostage, and they take off her shoes, and they put her in a room with all this glass on the floor. So they're like recreating the scene from Die Hard. And the best moment of that whole thing is when Troy's like, well, I want to take Padre, because my people, we need a great place to live. And Charlie looks around and looks at him and goes, what's wrong with this place? And I'm like, yes, that is like a great question. Oh,
I like how that happens occasionally, right in the middle of an episode that makes no sense. You have one person who makes one cogent thought in the middle of it, and you're like, yes,
exactly. Right?
Yes.
Exactly. And he has some, cockamamie answer about, well, we took this place in a day, and I want something that's more defensible. I'm like, oh, come on. You could totally make that place defensible. I mean, it's like, give me a break.
Oh, my God.
But
the only reason you took that place in a day is because you literally you blackmailed them into like letting you in.
Yeah,
pretty
and
much.
they had no guys, they had no armed guards or any, you know what I mean? It was they weren't defending it. That's why it was, easily taken. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible.
I did like one part of the scene where there really wasn't a lot of tenseness in the whole, like, once Madison and everybody showed up at the hotel and there's the whole like, let her go, we're not gonna let her go, you gotta tell us where Padre is, instead of like, that whole thing was ridiculous. But before that, when Troy is basically torturing Charlie emotionally, mentally, whatever, and you see him chopping off the arms, and I have to say, I actually thought that was kind of interesting that he would intentionally, I don't think we've ever seen someone do that, where they intentionally did something to get inside someone's head and they utilized the ghouls to do that. You know what I mean? Not to this level. And I thought that was really interesting, because he knows that now Madison's going to be, looking for Alicia.
Right.
And
she's looking for the one-armed ghoul.
Yeah. And like she says later, she sees Alicia in every single ghoul that's like around that has like the one arm. She's going to be looking for her. Yeah. And I thought that was actually, I was like, that was an interesting choice and kind of a very specific mental torture. Yeah. And I thought it was actually a good choice. Everything else that Troy did was stupid and dumb, but that like one little specific thing was very specific to Madison and very, very harsh, very effective, because it worked. We saw that it worked for her. And like I said, we'd never seen someone do something quite like that before. So I give the writers kudos. They came up with one tiny thing that was like, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, even a blind nut finds a squirrel.
That's
occasionally.
True.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you mean a blind squirrel finds a nut?
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Something.
He's torturing her because he wants to find out where Padre is, and he tells her that he's going to make her walk on the glass and cut her feet all up, and it'll be bad. Yeah. And then the tanker explodes.
Yeah.
And I guess we kind of come to realize that was Charlie's plan, was to have them capture the tanker. She had it rigged on a timer with a bomb of some sort, and she was hoping they would bring the tanker into their base, and that in the explosion she would take out Troy and probably herself too, because as we find out, she's very suicidal, for what's coming up. But anyway, that explosion, that kind of brings, like you said, Madison and her group together, and we have yet what is just, I think, the fifth or sixth extremely tenseless standoff that the knuckleheads have had on their shows, where, I mean, you have like all the, it boggles my mind that, here you have Troy, and he's like, I'm going to kill you, Madison. And then she's like standing like 4 feet away from him, and he doesn't shoot her. And then you have Daniel, the next time I see you, I'm going to kill you. And then there's Troy, like 4 feet away from him, and he doesn't shoot him. It's like, what is with you people? All right. I don't know. So they have this weird standoff, and, it's he wants to know where Padre is. She wants to get Charlie back. Okay, well, I'll give you Charlie if you give me Padre. And then, like, he's going to have his second in command go off, and they're going to show him where Padre is. So it has to be close by. And then he's going to come back, and once he comes back, then they'll give Charlie to him, right? And so my first thought is, someone at some point has to sit down with Troy and look him in the eye and say, how stupid are you? Because Padre is an island, right?
Uh-huh.
And unless it's like the island from Wonder Woman or the island from Lost that has like this weird cloaking ability thing, it's an island. Why don't you just get in your little speedboat and like go tooling up and down the coast in this area and you'll find it? I mean, you know what I mean? How tough is it? And if you can't do that, listen to the radio frequencies that all these people use with their magic walkie-talkies that can always work. And they'll probably tell you where it is right over the air. I mean, it just blows me away that his whole thing is we gotta find Padre, and it's like it's an island. How can you not find it?
I didn't understand that when they first were dealing with that at the beginning of the season. They're like, oh man, we gotta locate this island. I'm like, is that hard? Like, yeah. I mean, you would think if it were me, I would just wait until nighttime and then find the place that, is giving off the most light. I don't know. I don't want to tell people how to do their, searching, but they're just not doing it like the smart way.
I know. It's just, it just boggles my mind that's like, I get it when Padre was first introduced and nobody really knew what it was. Then it's much more of a mystery because is it a building? Is it a boat? Is it it could be anything, right? That I get. But once we determine it's an island and these people from Padre, including Madison, are coming and going in their little boats and they're bringing kids and their supplies. And, obviously if they're picking up full tanker truck full of gas, those are big boats that are hauling those back to Padre. Yet it's like, really, you couldn't just like follow one of them and see where they go. It is so stupid that he can't figure it out. That the only way he can figure it out is to have someone tell him where it is. It's like you're a moron, Troy. I'm sorry, but that's his plan. And so he is, I won't give back Charlie until then. And then Charlie decides at this point that, she's not going to let him know where an island is because, oh, my God, that'll be the end of the world. And so she kills the guy that's holding the walkie-talkie up for her to talk to. Yeah. And she picks up his gun. And there's one other guy in the room that she is now surprised. Does she shoot him? And, if she's got this like suicidal streak in her and like feeling like she needs to kill herself, does she go out in a blaze of glory and, try and kill as many of his guys as she can before she gets taken out? I mean, if it was me, kill that guy. There's all those ghouls locked up in that thing. Let them loose so they're wandering around the compound and then just run around and try and screw up as much crap as I can. Right? If I'm really like, hey, this is my last rodeo here and I'm not getting out of here alive, I'm going to try and take as many of these guys as I can. But no, not Charlie. No, we can't let that character have that moment. No, instead, she decides the only thing that she can do is to blow her brains out.
Yeah, which I don't understand that. I just really don't.
I thought it was a very, very poor choice. I know if you read Eric Kane's review, he has some very, very strong words, and I agree with him a lot. When I watched the episode twice, and the first time when it happened, I was like, really? She killed herself? And I didn't really think about it because, as I told you when we were talking about it before we started, this is not something that has never happened in a zombie story before. There have been multiple times where people have taken their own life, but usually it's like after they've been bitten, and they're bleeding to death and they know they're going to turn and they don't want to become a ghoul. So then they,
it's making a choice, right?
Yeah. Or in cases where like, they're in a corner and there's like 10 to 12 ghouls closing in on them and they have one round left in their revolver. And they're like, well, this is it. So then they eat their, you know what I mean? So it has happened before, but there are circumstances, right? There's context where you're like, yeah, you know what? That's probably not a horrible decision based on what's going on. But she killed herself because, she didn't want Troy to know where an island is.
Yeah, she didn't want to be forced to tell or forced to talk about it or what, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like it escalated to her doing that in a way that made no sense. You know, you can argue whether or not she was sort of put in a position where she felt like this was the best way for me to help everybody out. Fine, you can make that argument, but I don't think she would have gotten there that fast. You know what I mean? Like there was, there were other options. Like you said, why didn't she try and shoot the other guy that was in the room? That would have ended it in a hot second.
Right. Shoot one of those guys, take their shoes so you don't have to walk on the glass. And then if you remember, Troy was hacking off the arms, and then he had a whole bunch of ghouls like locked up in that like metal cage because he was like going to open it up and let him out and try and get her and make her run away. Shoot that lock. Open those doors, let them out. Right now you have ghouls roaming around this place, and maybe they're going to kill one or two of his guys. At the very least, it's going to create some confusion, so maybe she can get away.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just the fact that that's what they did, and the fact that they trivialized, what is a real serious problem. It struck me as just being very insensitive, and I'm very surprised that all of those people that are executive producers on this show, the Herds and the Kirkmans and the Gimples and the Nicoteros, that they saw that and went, yeah, that's good, let's do that. It's just further example to me of how people, the top level of The Walking Dead are pretty much like, just go finish your stupid show. Don't bother us.
Yeah.
And we're working on, we're trying to plan out Daryl season 2 right now, which is a good show. So you just go finish whatever the hell you're going to do and leave us alone. And I just think it was a really bad choice. And they should be ashamed of themselves.
And they also, in retrospect, they tied it to like, they're not even really mourning Charlie. They're really centering the whole death of Charlie as a thing to make Madison feel guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not even anything about who she was. Probably the one moment where he had some realistic acting was at the end when Daniel freaks out on Madison and is like, who are you? Like, who does that to somebody? Who, you know what I mean? And yes, like I said, they're taking the death and making it more about Madison than it is about Charlie. But what he said to her wasn't wrong. And it all came from a place of anger and, absolute, remorse. He's totally mourning the loss of Charlie because he literally got her back and lost her in like 24 hours.
And in one day. Yeah. The end sequence there, it's kind of implied that Madison sent her, he's like, you sent her into that nest of vipers, that it's your fault she's dead. And then he says, you wanted her to die. And I was kind of like, yeah, I kind of got that too, that she made her go and do this mission to infiltrate Troy's group and kill him. And Madison was thinking, and if you pull it off, great. And if they stop you and they kill you before you can, that's okay too, And
yeah,
and while that's cold, karmically speaking, I don't think that's out of line. I mean, that girl killed her son and killed her son for no good reason. So if she wants to see that girl dead, I think she's entitled. But the thing that kind of, again, the bad writing comes in is how selfish all these characters became at the end. And now it's no longer, hey, we're trying to, create this mythical safe place for everyone. And Daniel's like, no, you killed Charlie, so I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm leaving. And he does. And then Madison goes up to Strand and she's like, you know what? I can't be with you because I'm a terrible person. So I'm leaving too. And then she walks off. And I'm like, really, guys? Is everyone like 5 years old now? And then the funniest part of the whole episode is now Strand is running Padre.
And I had a really silly, fleeting thought when she put the keys in his hand and walked away. I was like, does Strand know how to drive a tanker truck?
And on top of it, I'm like, does Strand even know where Padre is?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just it was like just like farce at the end there. And you brought up a point about Daniel and Lucy, but before we started talking, and I know it's not on your list, but I think you should bring it up because I think it's very, very much going to happen.
Oh, is it my last line that that it ties their storyline up?
Oh yeah, I guess it is in there. I didn't think
yeah.
You added
that. I wanted to make sure we chatted about it because I posed the question because I think it's true. I think it's possible that Daniel might get somewhere and go, okay, now I feel guilty and I'm going to go help them with Padre. Maybe we'll see Daniel again. But I think it's very possible that we will not see Lucy again. I think that they have wrapped up her storyline. You know, she gave the tanker truck to them. She's like, listen, that's it. You can't get any more.
Don't come back.
Yeah, you've jeopardized my whole thing. You got rid of my driver is dead now. Like, you've harmed me. You've hurt my operation. You need to go away. I can't help you. I want nothing to do with it. And Lucy made she said the line that people should say in the apocalypse all the time, which is, it's not my fight. Yeah. And she's right. She has nothing to do with either side of that fight. So she could care less if Troy runs Padre. It doesn't have anything to do with her, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think it's entirely possible that we won't see Lucy again. And they may just wrap up the whole Lucy and Daniel. I mean, we only have 3 more episodes left.
4.
Or technically 4. I'm sorry. Yeah. But we already know that the next episode is Dwight and Sherry specific. Right. So there's 3 more after next week that we don't know what the plot information is, but I find it hard to believe in those 3 episodes that they would take the time to go back to Lucy, who hasn't been a character that these guys have cared about developing in any way. We said before we started recording, I made the point that I was like, in any other TV show, they may, wrap up Lucy, in the final 2 minutes of the show, they show, this is how this person's living out their life now. And then they'll switch and show, and this is how this other person is living out their life now, and like a montage. And maybe another show would do that with Lucy, but not this show. This show, they don't know how to write for her. They did the best they could to insert her back into the storyline with something that felt slightly believable. And then they gave her a believable way to walk away and not be involved again. And I really just don't think, I think that's it. They blew their wad with Lucy. There's no way they're going to be able to come up with any other reason for her to come back in, because and now I'm going to talk myself out of it, because I was just about to say it wouldn't make any sense for her to help them out at Padre, which just proved the other side of the point, which is that just shows why she will show back up again.
Exactly. Well, again, I mean,
because it wouldn't make sense for her character to do it, so that therefore it might actually happen. Yeah.
Well, and like I said before, this episode, her motivation was very clear that she's not getting involved. She's not allowing anyone to get close to her. She just wants to run her business. But there very well could be an episode coming up where she's going to be, oh my God, Madison, we need to stick together and we got to make Padre into something. And you'll be like, huh? But with these guys, you never know. I mean, I agree with you, though. I don't think we will see her again. I think she joins Al. and Mo Collins and Wendell and the rabbi and some of these other people, that they're just gone. That I think Lucy she's an original character that was on the show when the Knuckleheads took over. Right? They didn't create that character. They were kind of inherited her. And you're right. They never made an effort to try and write anything for her to do. I don't think they liked that character. And I think certainly once Nick was gone, there was even less reason in their minds for her to be around. And so, I mean, if you think about it, they gave her a job in a refinery. And then when that blew up and everything went bad, they then gave her another job in a refinery. So, apparently all they figured out for her to do is to make gasoline, and that's it. And to do it somewhere else, right? Because she was never really around. So, I agree with you. I think, is it possible we could kind of get a little like, and that little girl grew up to be the princess of, Florida or whatever. Maybe like we'll get some little, end sequence where we have a freeze frame of her from like season 3 and it says, she lived a long, happy life or whatever. But most likely, she will be gone. And I think Ruben Blades probably will come back just because I think is a bigger, draw. He's like third build on the show. So right. I think that they will try and bring him back. And you're right. I think, he will he'll come back into the story. We'll have to see though, but with her, would not surprise me if she's done.
And before we sort of like wrap up our thoughts, I know we'll sort of jump back into stuff we forgot about, but we have to also take a moment to talk about the absolute, as much as the Troy stuff is ridiculous with like, there's no stakes when his guys are, in their little very non-Mexican standoff with Madison's people outside. And like you were saying, they run right past the group and, there just weren't any stakes. As ridiculous as all that was, for it to now devolve into, so Troy's motivation this whole time has been quote unquote, like for the children, because now
someone magically please think of the children. because of him running around, like Michael Walt, now he's Tracy Carl
looking for. And as soon as he started running around looking for Tracy, I'm like, oh, that's his kid. Yeah. And that's going to be the thing that Madison really did. She did something that affected his kid, and that's what is real.
The big reveal is that Madison's going to be the mom.
Well, the real reveal was he made some comment about how Madison is responsible for Tracy's mom's death. Now, I read an article today where they really tried to pin down who that could be, if we have any ideas. And they said it would make sense for it to be two different groups of people. Could it be one of, I'm not going to remember her name, but there was a woman who Daniel became friends with who ran the dam. And she had like a whole group of people there. And is it possible that one of them found Troy in the wreckage and saved him and blah, blah, blah? Yes.
Well, he says that. He says that this woman saved him at the dam and nursed him back to health.
So they were going through who were the most likely people that would have been at the dam to do that. And they said that the group of people that was running the dam, there was the one woman who became friends with Daniel. She had a whole group of people there. And, could there have been either her or maybe one of her other people there? Possible. And then they made another point, which was the other group of people that was there at the dam was Proctor John's group. And is it possible that there was a woman that was attached to Proctor John's group that then took him under their wing, and maybe some of the people that became part of Troy's group as well, maybe they're sort of offshoots or leftovers of Proctor John's group, because they were already like a militarized group of people during that time period anyway. And so perhaps. So we'll see. I wonder if we will even find out who that was, or if it even matters.
It doesn't.
Because it wouldn't be totally unheard of for these guys to throw a plot point out like that and then just never resolve it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But I guess now that Madison went off to walk the wilderness like Cain and and walk the earth.
Walk the earth, right? We call that a bum.
Yeah, I know. She's definitely destined to run back into Troy again, and either do something to help find Tracy, or she saves Tracy. She finds Tracy when she's on the road, brings her back to Troy, negotiates Padre out of it. I don't know. The kid's gonna be a point. Like, that's gonna be the reason why Padre's saved, or some bullshit like that. So as soon as he was like, Tracy, I'm like, I can already see 2 episodes ahead of us how this is all going to play out, kind of.
Well, and there's a little bit of symmetry there that, Madison lost her daughter, and now Troy has lost his, although we don't know for sure if she's dead. But technically we don't know for sure if Alicia's dead either. So they're trying to do that whole thing. Yeah, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but I guess Troy's mom, her name was Tracy.
Oh, was she?
Yeah. So that was his mom's name, which is not unusual for people to name their children after their parents. But I think it's interesting because, Troy had a really weird relationship with Madison back in the day, and he wanted her to be his mom, and he wanted to, get to ride all the rides. And part of the reason why, she, mostly killed him with the hammer was how weird he was being towards her. Yeah. I think it's an interesting bit that he ends up naming his daughter after his mother, because he clearly has mommy issues.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, God, yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, you're right, and I totally agree with you. Most likely, whoever she is never going to be brought up again. The mom, you know what I mean? It's just not important. Because first of all, she's dead, and she's been dead for a long time, apparently. So what's the point? It's going to do nothing. And since it wasn't, I don't think it will be we will see any kind of flashbacky stuff from that season with, Troy standing next to some girl. You know what I mean? It's like they just made that up. There is, you know what I mean? There is no real person that they're basing it on. So, a real character from back then. So I imagine it will never be uttered again, other than the kid, what happened to the kid. So yeah. Well, we got to see next week. They're going away from the whole Troy storyline, so we won't find out until episode 4. And again, I don't really care, so it doesn't matter.
We're gonna have to wait to get the answer to the thing we don't give a shit about.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
If that doesn't nutshell this whole TV show, I really don't know how. Is there any terrible moment that we wrote on our list that we didn't get to that we want to talk about? I feel like I covered all my stuff.
As you pointed out, I had a lot of question marks.
You did. It was very like one after. Let's see. After you shouldn't to Madison, you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have like 11 or 12 lines after that where everything is like 3 or 4 question marks after the end.
Or exclamation points or something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just the ludicrousness of this whole episode. When Madison is in the store and she's tapping on the glass, right, and the one-armed ghoul comes up and then they break the glass open. Madison kind of has this little freak out about Alicia, and she's like talking to Strand, and she's like, I should have never given up on her. And I'm like yelling at the TV, yes, that's right, you dim bulb, you shouldn't. And a mom wouldn't just be like, well, my kids are probably dead, I don't have to look for them. it was just like, yeah, now finally you're having this realization that, hey, you know what? My kids are pretty good at taking care of themselves because I taught them well. Maybe they survived. I should go find out. No. And then she, tells Strand, like, I've got to, put her down if she's out there. And Strand says, if she's out there, we'll find her. How? I mean, she's in Texas somewhere, and you're in, like you said, you're in like South Carolina. That made no sense. When Charlie showed up and they're like, how are you not dead? And she said that, she had and I'm using air quotes, she had radiation poisoning. And then Padre had and I'm using air quotes again, medicine to treat it. And so June cured her. And I was like, I'm sorry. Again, we watched Chernobyl. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm sorry.
We did,
right. And again, like, okay, Alexei, who is the fireman who turned out to be Quinn on the Daryl Dixon show, right? Yep. He had, and I'm using air quotes, radiation poisoning in Chernobyl, and he died horribly. And they explain, Jared Harris explains what happens when you get, and I'm using air quotes, radiation poisoning. And it's not something that you can take a pill for and it goes away. Yep. I mean,
there's no treatment for it.
No, there isn't. It's just, that line. I applaud them for at least throwing something out there to explain how she's not dead. But I'm sorry, and don't get me wrong. I am sure if you go through the annals of the medical history of the world, somewhere, someplace, somehow, there was someone that had as much exposure as she did, and they somehow survived, right? I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's like the, winning the lottery person. It's a 1 in a billion thing. And Charlie's dead, all right? Charlie died. The radiation killed Charlie. She died, okay? That's what happened to Charlie. That line, I was seriously, like if we weren't doing the podcast, I would have done. I'm done. I don't need to see anymore. I did like it when the truck pulled up and Lucy's like, you guys better just stay in here, because she knows who's in the truck, and she doesn't necessarily know if Madison she doesn't know if Madison knows she killed Nick. She's probably operating on the idea that she does. And so she's like, it's just better for everybody if you guys stay in here, right? And they are always like, well, what is that all about? We need to figure out who's out there. And Daniel's like, no, I trust her. She would never, because they're like, maybe it's Troy or something. And Daniel's like, she would never give us up, to Troy. I believe in her. And Strand says something like, you mean that she would choose us over survival or something? And Daniel just looks at her and goes, certainly not you.
Yeah.
Which again goes back to, Daniel at one point said he was going to kill Strand as well, if you remember, because he did shoot him in the face. Yes. But I like that line. Let's see. So they're having the standoff, and then the kid, Tracy's missing, so Troy literally runs through Madison's group, and I'm like, what? Shoot him! No, they don't. And then he's running around, and the first thing I noticed too, by the way, is that last week Madison could take like 3 steps without having to use the oxygen. And now she's like standing next to a smoking tanker truck, and she's fine. She has absolutely no problems breathing, right? Yeah. But she goes and she finds Troy, and then she helps Troy. And I'm like, wait, you're now working together? Now, again, it's like, kill him. He's right there. Hit him with the hammer. Kill him. No. And then after a little bit of helping them, then suddenly, no, now she wants to kill him. and I know Eric Kane brought this up, and I think it's really funny, so I'm going to bring it up too, and that is, if you have like a serious lung injury that means you can't breathe too well, maybe you shouldn't have your preferred weapon be like a 40-pound sledgehammer that you got to like, whip around, right, and exert yourself a lot with. He's like, maybe just go with a nice little knife, right? But it was just more silliness. And then again, it goes back to the end after that's over. Again, you have them facing them down, and I'm like, why doesn't Troy shoot Madison? Why doesn't Daniel shoot Troy? I'm so confused. And and then the final thing, which I already said, is that at the end of the episode, if you think about it, Strand, who everybody hates for being the dictator, is now running Padre.
Yeah. So he's in charge of children. I just want to make sure that that's clear. He's the most cold-blooded out of probably all of them. Yes. And will stop at nothing to save himself.
Yes. Well, and
he's
Frank
in
and
charge
Klaus.
of the children.
We got several Frank and Klaus references, and by the way, I think we should open a boutique and call it Frank and Klaus. I think.
Why wouldn't you? That's the most obvious thing that should happen next.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. So
that's everything. That's everything I got. So. Oh God, it's so much. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else to chat about, we should take a break, don't you think? Yeah, I need to.
Yeah.
This
I think
bad,
so too.
People.
I know. I need to take a deep breath and maybe cry a little, and then we can maybe continue. How's that sound?
I think so.
I think that's a good plan. It's a good plan. We're going to go and cry in the corner. We're going to take a quick break, guys, where we're going to go, cry a little bit. And when we come back, we're going to discuss all of our listener feedback and what's coming up on the podcast.
So take a deep breath. It'll be okay. There's only 4 more to go. And stick around, because we'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Ross Marquand, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And remember, always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey, everybody, we are back. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our listener feedback. I'm going to go first this week, so let's get right to it, everybody.
Let's do it.
First up, we have feedback for, not this episode, for the final episode for the Daryl Dixon series, and it comes to us from
Good Television.
Yes. So it's like a little oasis in the middle of all of this desert of shit.
Ooh. Is it like a Padre Island, perhaps?
Yeah. Don't. No, thank you. So this came to us from our pal Andy from Germany. Hello, Andy. And obviously being in Germany, it takes a little bit for him to get some of the episodes. Sometimes his feedback is like about a week or so behind. So I was curious if we were going to get some thoughts on the end of Daryl Dixon, and here we are.
Here we are.
So Andy wrote into us via email, and he says, bonjour, toujours mes amis, Diana and Steve. I almost said my own name wrong. That's great.
Well
and
done.
He says, thanks. I like to really fall down completely, not just like trip. And he says, finally, I can put the 7 years of French I had at school to some good use. thanks to you. Well,
Wow.
you're welcome. And I'm glad
7
that
years?
that's a service we can provide. Yeah, learning another language.
I took 2 years of Spanish, man.
They're dedicated in other countries. This isn't America.
I know.
Where they're like, yeah, you can learn how to ask for apples in Spanish, and then.
But I mean, let's be real. In Europe, you can like drive in your car for like 10 minutes and go through like 9 countries. So
right, which is why you kind of need to know at least a little bit of conversational,
Right? Yeah.
For
in America,
at least one other language other than English.
I mean, we could get in a car and drive south, and it would take like 10 hours before we would get out of Illinois.
Right. I mean, and everything's just all corn. I mean, when I tell you that there's a lot of corn, there's a lot of corn.
There's a lot of corn, yeah.
And just when you think there is too much corn, it just continues and there's more corn.
I know. It's amazing.
I know. It's crazy. All right. So back to Andy. Sorry, Andy. He continues on and says, since it's the finale of the Daryl series, I'll take a more general approach. I always thought that the medieval castles around here would be our biggest asset in the zombie apocalypse. I would love to see a community that uses such a castle to survive. But unfortunately, depicting a plausible community is no longer a topic. We get to see killer nuns, a kiddie gang, and the decadent French demi-monde doing wild parties. Their antagonist is a James Bond villain who wants to create super zombies. The series gave up on the realism that made it so interesting for me. Very interesting take. He continues and says, the appearance of Carol was not really a surprise for me. I expected her to be on the boat. Since Daryl told her to be back in a few days, it was clear she would start searching for him. I thought once she found out what happened, she got a boat at Oceanside and moved to France. Well, not quite that, but yes, we're going to probably see her for sure. And then he continues and says, au revoir till the trashy, unfun Fear the Walking Dead episode 1. And we are dying to get your take, Andy, because you will get to see it in your own native language.
Oh my God!
I'm very excited.
Anton's House of Schnitzel.
Yeah. And he signs off Andre. He says, P.S. Patrouille is patrol in French, and indeed spoken like ratatouille. Patrouille is also the German word for patrol. We got many French words in German. So maybe that's what made 7 years of French something that yeah, it's a good payoff. Yeah, interesting thoughts on Daryl Dixon. It doesn't sound like you were overall a fan of this first part of the series. It sounds like it didn't quite hit the mark for you. And I get that. I totally do. Just because we liked it doesn't mean everybody does. And I did hear about a lot of people that did like it, but there were some people that didn't as well. So I get it. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. I hope it won't keep you from looking at season 2 when it comes out, because I think the addition of Carol might make it a little more, I don't know. It's just going to add, it's just going to add another layer, a different layer. So I'm curious about that. So, yeah. But thanks for writing in, Andy. As always, we love hearing your thoughts.
No, excuse me. Thanks for writing in, Andre.
And then we are dying to hear your thoughts on the first episode of Fear the Walking Dead, Anton, with the hotel full of German tourists.
And also, if you could you tell us, is Klaus a very common name? Is there a lot? Do you know lots of Klauses over there?
I did kind of go off on that as a thing, didn't I? Yeah.
It could have been Bill or Ted or John. No, they went with
or
Klaus.
Andy. So, hello.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
been a good
exactly.
One. So, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, I certainly hope you write in, but thanks for the feedback on the end of the Daryl show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look forward to hearing more from you. So thanks again, Andy. We appreciate it.
All right. Well, continuing on, we are still on the international desk, and we got some feedback. Now, this is for the episode Iron Tiger that we just got done reviewing and trashing. Mm-hmm. And this comes from our pal Bev, too.
Hey, Bev.
Hello, Bev. And she sent this via the email, and she says, I hope you had a great week. Well, here we go again with another episode of Fear. And what did we all think about this week's episode? Well, yeah.
I think that's obvious.
Then she goes on to say, what the hell was the point of all that? It started out all right with the team on the hunt for fuel, but as soon as I saw the message in the truck stop, I knew it was Luciana. However, I didn't expect Charlie to get out of the truck. How is it that she's still alive? I know. Right? She was on the verge of death the last time we saw her, but as we know, no one has ever really gone in this show. Charlie taking her own life was the only thing that partly made sense in this entire episode, but I'm half expecting her to be alive again next week.
She's not wrong.
Yeah. Well, in true knucklehead fashion, I guess didn't we see like her arm sticking out from the truck at the end?
Yeah. So they're gonna go bury her somewhere.
Yeah.
Because clearly, when they go back and unbury people and then burn some of their corpse, and because it wasn't a true resting place and stuff, definitely Luciana is the authority on where Charlie should be buried, without question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're right. So, but anyway, I was just going to say,
clearly.
I was just going to say that, it's a typical knucklehead death in that we don't see it. It's all off screen. Yeah. And then that raises the whole idea of, oh, is she really dead? Maybe she's just mostly dead.
Terrible.
But yeah, it was awful. So no, she's done. She's gone. All right. So then she goes on. Bev goes on to say, it seems the only point to this episode was for Madison to learn that Troy has a daughter, which is a point that they could have gotten to in a quarter of the time. Yeah, they could have. You're right. She was with only 4 episodes left. They could do with picking up the pace, especially with half the group going to the sanctuary next week. And she goes on to say, my prediction for next week's episode is Dwight and Sherry will have an epiphany at the sanctuary and decide that they are meant to be together, only to realize in a later episode that they are better off apart. And then she says June will hang around like a spare wheel. I'm still hoping that despite another wasted episode that they'll land the ending. Until next week, Bev, and this time it is rainy Devin, and Bev, we made this point multiple times, that, and not just the Fear, but kind of all of the Walking Dead shows, the older ones, not necessarily the 2 new series here, but all the old ones, they really only had 2 speeds, and that was slow and stop, and their ability to advance the narrative of their seasons was always very slow, and many wasted episodes where nothing really happened with whatever plot they were trying to tell. And then typically they would get to the penultimate episode, and that's when you have this massive amount of plot thrown at you all at once that they all suddenly race through and do, so that then they can do the season finale or the mid-season finale. And this season of Fear is no different in that they're gonna dink around with this episode they did tonight. Didn't really advance the plot very much, other than the whole daughter thing, which, like you said, that could have been one line, and then you'd have 41 minutes to do something else. And next week is the Sanctuary episode, which is literally a bottle episode in the final 6 stories. Really, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, the bottle episodes are all these guys do anyway, so it's not surprising.
Well, and also think about how little characters we have left. I mean, they killed off all of the superfluous people. And then, so all we really had left was the people that we're seeing. So they're slightly wrapped up, Daniel and Luciana. Charlie's definitely wrapped up.
Right.
So all we have left now are Dwight and Sherry and June, and then they'll put a button on Madison and Strand. And everything else, there is no one else.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
unless they magically get Al to show back up again, which isn't happening.
No, no. Maggie Grace, she's smart. She left. She gone.
She very smart. She left.
Yeah, she left.
And they already said, Morgan is not coming back. Lenny James is done, so that's not happening. So
I think the only one that could come back would be ADC.
Yes,
and that would be at the end.
Yeah, and I still think it's possible because I think since Troy is making such a big deal out of trying to freak out Madison, I'm not sure that he actually did what he said. I don't doubt that he ended up with the arm somehow, but I don't know that that's how it happened.
Well, see, here's what the reveal is going to be, and that is that Alicia got to Padre, and then June used, and I'm using air quotes, medicine at Padre that, and I'm using air quotes, regrew her arm completely, so she didn't need the fake arm anymore, or the old one with the bones, and she just left it somewhere, and then Troy found it. And so when we finally find Alicia again, she will be, a two-armed person, and it'll be just like nothing ever happened. That's how these guys will wrap it up. So, and it's all sciencey based, so it's all good. But Bev,
yeah, I mean, as long as it's based in real science, then we're good.
Yeah,
we're good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, these guys, they have a handle on stuff like that, like radiation and medication and walkie-talkies and all that stuff. They got it down.
I mean, it's very, very realistic. They do such a good job with that.
They do. They really do. Bev, thanks so much for writing in. Your prediction for Dwight and Sherry, I think, first of all, I totally see that happening, because that's kind of their jam of we're together, no, we're apart. We're together, no, we're apart. So if it happens again, I would not be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if one or two of them die.
Yeah.
If you saw the scenes for next week, scenes for next week, they look like they're in peril. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. But again, I could, like you just said, Dee, this is the Dwight and Sherry goodbye episode.
Yeah.
And, that regardless of whether they die or not, they will most likely not be in the show anymore. So, this is their swan song. So if they kill one or two of them, okay. Yeah, and again, I don't care at this point. So whatever, doesn't matter to me.
What do you think are the odds that part of their journey to the sanctuary is they find an abandoned small child, and they decide that you know what I mean, and that'll be the replacement for their son who's gone, because that usually is some sort of really, really tropey thing that the show uses, is we're going to rally around this kid that's not ours, but it'll replace the one that we lost, kind of thing. And
it'll give us a reason to live, and all that. I was kind of hoping that Sherry was going to the sanctuary looking for Negan, because she decided he was a better husband than Dwight.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, at least you knew what you're going to get.
Yeah, he
was terrible, but you knew.
But you knew he was really good at parties. He's a lot of fun, right? He's an entertaining guy. Dwight's kind of mopey. Sherry's kind of I look good when I was standing next to Negan and, all the other girls that he was married to at the time. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Whatever happens, I think we can all agree it's going to be dumb.
Yes, absolutely. No matter what it is, dumbness will prevail. Yeah. That's for sure.
Anyway, thank you very much for writing in, Bev.
Thank you, Bev. Yes. Don't let our we go off on tangents, but we don't want to let it be forgotten that we love that you write in every week. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Next up is our pal Karen, not related to Lauren Cohen. And she wrote into us via the Facebooks. And it's a typical hilarious rant from Karen. So thank you, Karen, for writing in, as always. And she says, "What is with this show? Really? After so much BS, Charlie kills herself? Troy still is going to take what he wants? Ugh. What another terrible reunion. Why is no one ever happy to see each other upon first look? It takes them like a world of time before they hug and stuff. Madison's dumb freakout where she's trying to destroy a tractor? It was better when Travis died. Why would anyone, especially another woman, send a girl by herself to go meet up and possibly kill a psychopath? Some women can't even walk down the street alone in this world. Again, ugh. Why is everyone surprised that Troy still wants Padre? He's been spouting it for an episode and a half now. Why won't he tell Madison what she took from him? I thought it was everything. Madison fucking left? What the hell? Hopefully you guys can make some sense, because I don't get it. Yay for hate watching a show with other people. My husband doesn't even watch and knows it's garbage. He said he hopes the writers only get paid like $20 an hour, and even that seems like too much. Cheers! Well, I hate to disappoint you, Karen. First of all, love the rant, but second of all, I don't think that we can make sense of this.
No.
I think it's really reached a point where we can't take in an episode of Fear and then like come up with like, maybe this is what they meant, or this is probably where they're heading, or whatever. Yeah, I don't fucking know. All of your questions are so valid.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve to be asked, and I just don't have answers for you.
Yeah, no,
I don't think we just can't. We can't. I mean, we will absolutely happily hate watch the show with you and with others, but I can't make heads or tails of it anymore. It just makes no sense to me.
Right, yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Right, it doesn't. And however we think the characters are this week, next week, there's a really good chance they're going to be completely different and have completely different motivation and so on. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The only thing I disagree with is I like the freak out with the tractor. I thought that was like the most real moment of the whole episode. But
except for the fact that she was able to do that as long as she did, and she was still able to breathe and not pass out.
Yeah. Right.
But again, yes, the emotions behind it, yes, I felt like that was real. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and again, why would anyone send a girl to kill the guy? Well, because she wanted her to die too. So, I think we kind of went over that. I think that might explain that motivation. But you're right. It's they go through all of the stuff of Charlie wanting to redeem herself, and basically she figured her conclusion is, well, if I shoot myself, that will make me everything square with Madison. I don't know. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Terrible, you could even say. So coming up next week, we continue with the slog, but we do it together, folks. We're here as a group. And next up is episode number 9 of season 8. Title of the episode is Sanctuary. We haven't been given the
title of the episode is 3 Down, 3 Left.
All right. And that's the title. And then the sort of subtitle that AMC has assigned to
Sanctuary.
It is Sanctuary.
Right.
Now, we don't have an episode description. We do know it's a Dwight and Sherry episode, and I'm gonna say that the title is probably a huge clue as to where the episode is. So I don't think they really even needed to provide us with an episode description other than this is the last time you will ever see Austin Emilio and Christine Evangelista on this show, most likely.
Yes.
Yeah. But they didn't want to write that out. They're just giving it to you in images and the name of the show, the title of the show. Sorry.
And it looks like in the scenes that June tags along with them, or shows up there at some point, because I believe we do see Jenna Elfman in the scenes a little as well. So it will not just be Dwight and Sherry. It will be Dwight, Sherry, and June as well. So,
nice.
But I don't
love a little third wheel action. Never that bad. So that's what's coming up on the episode. What else is going on in the world of Aim for the Head? We are 3 weeks out from the Days of the Dead convention here in Chicago. We are super duper looking forward to this convention.
Yep.
It's always a lot of fun. Really good slate of guests this year. Which ones are you mostly? Do you have any that are that you're planning your money's around?
Well, obviously Alyssa Sutherland.
Yes, that's right.
From Evil Dead Rise. She's kind of the headliner of the show, and I saw her. I went to Days of the Dead in Indianapolis back in June, and she was the guest there, and she's amazing. She's Australian, and she's tells very, very great stories, but in this wonderful Australian accent, which is really fun. And yeah, she was really cool. I'm looking forward to meeting Harry Hamlin.
Yes.
That's going to be cool. He's, is scheduled to be there. This actor named Bob Gunton is going to be there. And if you don't recognize the name, trust me, you know him. He, was the warden in the Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah.
And he's like one of those actors who you don't necessarily know his name, but you recognize the guy. And he's been in a ton of movies in the 90s and the aughts. He's there because he made a horror movie called Dead Silence, which is a movie about puppets, and and I have to say the movie is kind of lackluster all the way up through the majority of it. The ending is phenomenal. And
really?
Oh my God, the ending is so great. And you're like, why wasn't the whole movie like this? You know what I mean? But yeah, he's in it. Marky Mark's brother, Donnie Wahlberg, is in it. And then another cast member from Dead Silence is going to be there as well. So those two I'm looking forward to. There are 4 actors from Friday the 13th Part 3 and 3D that are going to be there. So that's going to be fun. And of course, the Dolls of Horror will be there, and it's always fun to catch up with Jamie Dahl and Summer Dahl. So and their new producer Nina Dahl.
That'll be fun, big fun.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, if you're interested in going, I believe you have a little bit less than 3 weeks to get discounted tickets. I think it's maybe 18 days. I think it's like the Wednesday before the show is when they cut off the discount option. And if you're interested in going, take advantage of it, because like a weekend pass with a discount is like $60, and if you get a weekend pass after that, it's like $80. So it's definitely worth it. Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, I am looking forward to a couple of Sons of Anarchy guys that are going to be there. Kim Coates, who played Tig Traeger, Mark Boone Jr., who I'm actually excited about Mark Boone, because Mark Boone was supposed to go to Walker Stalker Atlanta when I went. He was supposed to be part of the first panel that I did, but he actually didn't even make it to the show. He had to cancel at the last minute.
That's right.
So
it
was
that stalker panel.
So it was weird because it was a really small panel. It was just, and if you guys know the show, it's just David LaBrava, who played Happy, Donald Logue, who had a small role for only like a season or so, and then Mark Boone Jr., who was there for the whole entirety of the show. So it was a nice mixture, but then you took Mark Boone out of it, and David LaBrava is a kind of interesting character, very like sort of out there. And then Donald Logue was only on the show for a short period of time. It was still an awesome panel. They were super nice. And the best part about it was they hadn't seen each other in a long time. So it was more about those two catching up with each other. But yeah, so anyway, so Mark Boone Jr. was not at Walker Stalker Atlanta when I was there, and I'm dying to meet him. I think he's great. I'd love to get a hug from him. And of course, One Take Marquand will be there as well. So
One Take Marquand, yeah.
Our pal and yours, Ross Marquand, will be there. I have
paid to see him.
Yeah, I have paid for a picture with Ross Marquand before, but we'll see if maybe I can be. We'll see how the money situation is going. But yeah, there's a really good mixture of people. It's a little bit of classic, some newer horror. And what's good is they do a good job of getting some really great talent in advance, and it's a really good list now. But between now and when the show is, they will probably confirm a couple of more people, a couple more stragglers between now and then, that maybe people just didn't have their November dates set, and then finally they can commit to going to the show or whatever. So it's a good list so far, and it may possibly even grow from there, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a really great show. We always have a lot of fun, and our pals from the Dolls do the all of the panels, and they always do such a great job. So we are guaranteed to have a good time when we go, without question.
And I think also, just again, the eclectic group, I believe Ace Frehley from Kiss is going to be there.
Yes.
I believe Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees is going to be there. He's the last surviving monkey.
Yeah.
And then I think like Jenna Jameson is coming. If you know her from
and Lou Ferrigno is going to be there.
Yeah,
from the Hulk.
It's a huge, wide, swath. It's not just like classic horror or modern horror or whatever. I mean, they really do try and reach out. Lots of times they'll have, like I say, musicians like that. They usually will have a wrestler from the wrestling thing that is huge, whether it's MMA or any of the other stuff that is on there, or WWA, whatever. I'm not a wrestling guy, so I don't know what they all are, but it's huge, right? I mean, they do the huge stuff, so they get those guys too. So yeah, it's a super fun show, and it's at a neat place. It's got lots of great restaurants close by, and you're obviously right by Chicago, which has everything you would ever want. So if you're interested, if you're looking for something to do on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of November, definitely a huge recommendation to go to Days.
Good fun.
So.
And you'd get to see us.
There you go. And you'll be able to spot us because we'll be the ones wearing the horror T-shirts there.
Yeah,
so.
It'll be easy
to spot. Absolutely.
Without question. Yeah, we'll stand out actually. To be fair. So, all right. Well, I don't think we got anything else to talk about. Do you?
No, I do not.
That
is it. Other than just to say, Happy Halloween.
Halloween. Oh, spooky.
So, hopefully you get lots of candy, and hopefully only a little of it is poisoned.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I only like to have a small percentage of my candy to be poisoned.
Exactly. Or razor bladed or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to wrap it up for us this week, guys. We look forward to chatting with you again next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
We're ready to go?
I think so.
Okay. So
did you get some magic B-roll, did you?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, it's all magic. It's just hand selecting the best magic out of all of it, right?
I just think that when you compare the B-roll to the actual podcast, the B-roll is going to be gold.
I mean, there's your B-roll right there. So there you go.